How to make a silicone mold. What you will need are the following items. Silicone. In Australia you can get these from your local Bunnings. This is the brand that I buy, it's the cheapest, and it doesn't really matter whether you use white or clear. Next thing you will need is a caulking gun. Again, you can also get these from Bunnings, it doesn't really matter which one as long as your silicone fits into it, and you can use it to squeeze the silicone out. You will also need corn flour. Any run-of-the-mill corn flour will do. I get mine from Aldi. 500 grams is the best one because you need a lot to waste. You also need olive oil. Obviously here it's extra mild, but it doesn't really matter whether it's extra virgin. I get that from Coles. And you will also need oil paints. These I got from my local cheapie store. It's about $10 for the whole lot. Sorry, my camera decided to just fall over at this particular point. But yes, oil paints will stop the silicone from hardening quicker than they do when you use acrylic paints. You will also need a non-stick tray. This is just a pizza pan that I found that stuff does not stick to, which is great. And you will also need a pair of gloves. I use latex. I got all these from Bunnings as well. It was a box of 100 for about $8. Before we start, you need to find the resin pieces that you'll be using that you want to make the mold of. These are just ones from my collection. So what you first do is grab a handful of corn flour and throw it onto your pan. As I said, there's no specific measurements for this, it's just what you feel will help you get the job done. So you put the corn flour on your tray, and then you get your silicone with your caulking gun, and in this particular instance I believe I used 4 squirts, which is enough to make a decent sized mold depending on how deep you want it. Here I'm using the clear as well, as I said it doesn't matter. Figure out which paint you want to use to colour it, whether or not you want it coloured, that's obviously your choice. As I said before, use oil paints instead of acrylic because acrylic seems to accelerate the hardening process of the silicone. And then basically just put as much olive oil as you feel will stop it from sticking to your gloves, the pan. It just gives it a little bit more elasticity. As it turned out, the neck of my bottle was blocked, so I had to chop it off. But because I use olive oil for cooking, it made sense to put it in a smaller bottle to use for craft as well. And then all you have to do is start kneading it as you would Play-Doh or dough. The basic gist of it is to make sure that it doesn't stick to your gloves. If it sticks to your gloves, then it's obviously not kneaded enough. The last thing you will need is either a Tupperware container lid or something to put your silicone into. Put it into the lid, press it down as much as you can, spread it as evenly as you can. It's not an exact science, obviously this is just home DIY craft, so it's not going to be as pretty as the silicone molds you'll buy in shops. Just a note, this is not food safe, this is for resin or plaster of Paris only. Do not use it to make cookies or anything like that, that's just a bit silly. Then all you do is grab your resin pieces. Here I tried to flatten it out, but it didn't work quite as well as I thought it was going to be because it kept sticking to the wood. But grab your resin pieces, push them face down into the silicone so you get the imprint that you want. Make sure that all the sides are pushed up because obviously when you're pouring liquid in, you don't want liquid pouring out. And keep adding resin pieces until you've filled the whole thing. For the purposes of this video, this is one I prepared earlier. I obviously used green oil paint to colour it, and I probably used a bit more silicone. As you can see, I've got a lot of resin pieces in there, chocolate bars, wings, paw prints, stars, bats. You can pretty much put anything you want in there. Just a note, the bear shape is a rubber, and it came out quite well. None of it stuck to the silicone, so depending on what shapes you are using, at least you know you can use rubber. You will find they'll be covered in a bit of corn flour, so just give your mould a wash before you use it with resin or plaster of Paris. And as you can see, there is a clear definition of the shapes that we've put in the mould. Thank you very much for watching.